Hello, and welcome to episode 128 of Prose. This week, dance with your beloved down memory lane, see what a saint has to do with the Assyrians, and read along with the resurrection story according to the Gospel of Luke. The first story this week is an ultra-special one from a frequent contributor to the podcast. I thought that it should have a place of prominence on what is annually a pretty significant episode to me, as it falls on a holiday near and dear to my heart. I'll forego my usual pleas, shorten these introductory comments, and simply encourage you to go explore prosepodcast.com. All sorts of fun stuff is there. Go check it out. Also, keep an eye and an ear out for additional Artists Supporting Artists initiatives. Thanks for listening. Let's get to the tales, especially the first one, shall we? This week we have Memory Lane by Elizabeth Peterson, a remastering of the very first Easter love's history, St. Ambrose and the Assyrian Empire, and our annual Easter reading of the resurrection of Jesus according to Luke. Enjoy. Memory Lane by Elizabeth Peterson. For my grandparents. She came to these fields as a child, but she doesn't remember that now. She ran their lengths, slipping on the mud that accumulated on her Mary Janes, dirtying her uniform and shoes so much that her mother would surely scold her when she returned home. Her mind holds none of these memories. She nods pleasantly at the young man who adjusts her chair. She frowns slightly as he leans to straighten her collar. "Forgive me, Mrs. Lane. Your tag was out. I fixed it for you." The young man smiles apologetically. She waves him off. She used to spend hours with her mother trying on clothes in Marks and Spencer. The clothes turned from expensive luxury items to generic department store pieces right in front of her as the years passed. She doesn't think about that now. She blandly reflects on the red silk of her blouse. It matches the poinsettia decorations around her. She plays with the cuffs absent-mindedly and wonders when her hands became so withered. She could use some lotion, and she wonders if that young man could help her find some. Her bathroom cabinet at university had every possible brand of hand cream from the local Boots. She was at uni 20 kilometers from the village where she grew up, and she felt incredibly independent and mature to have traveled so far to attend school. She has no recollection of this bathroom cabinet now. She is unsure more lotion is going to have an effect on her aged hands. But it must be worth a try. She motions over to the young man. He's walked far enough away that he's a little fuzzy, even though she's wearing her glasses. And for a moment, she pauses. There's something in that silhouette that resonates with her. The blurred features could easily be put together to form a man she once knew. She could almost place him. How she had loved that dashing man she met at uni. He had grown to be the one dearest in the world to her. They had done ballroom dance together and were the best at swing. When he led, it felt effortless, and she thought she may as well be floating over the dance floor. He spun her with such ease, and she fell in love quickly and deeply. She still wears his ring on a silver chain around her neck, and she has since he died 3 years ago. She doesn't know why she wears this ring, nor can she see it from her vantage point. She can almost picture his face now, but doesn't know whom she's seeing. The young man walks towards her, and his now distinguishable features cause the image in her mind to dissipate. He misinterprets her gesture with her hands and spins her toward another corner of the room. She sees a silver birch out the window from here. She thinks how well-mannered this boy is and vaguely considers how she'd like a son like him someday. They had Joseph when she was in her early 30s, which her family had considered late at the time. She had wanted the years of freedom with her love and had trouble when they did decide to start trying for a child. After 2 painful miscarriages, Joseph was born and filled their lives with a new love they couldn't have previously imagined. He was a school teacher now and lived a 30-minute drive from her. He and his wife visit every Sunday. She isn't able to place him now, but his wife bears a strong resemblance to one of her best friends from uni. She is always delighted to see Carol again, looking young and vibrant as ever. Each time they visit, she loosely ponders how Carol looks just as youthful as she did at uni, while she feels so tired and old. And each time she greets Carol, that gentleman looks on with a confusing sadness in his eyes. Why was he so sad? The table in front of the window is covered in a cheap red tablecloth adorned with white blobs. In fact, she thinks as she squints her eyes, perhaps they're snowmen. Or snowflakes. Something snow-themed. She sits back again, proud to have identified the small blurs on the tablecloth. Yes, snow. For the winter. It had been snowing at Joseph's wedding. His wife was perfectly calm, but he was in a tizzy, and she, his mother, had to talk him down. The snow didn't change their love for each other, she reminded him. A slight weather delay didn't ruin the wedding. They didn't even like the cousins that were running late. She held him close, and he cried on her shoulder like he was in grade school again, when only his mother could comfort him. She smoothed out his tucks and reassured him that a woman who loved him very much was waiting for him and loved him no matter the weather. And what did they expect? Planning a wedding in December. The ceremony was beautiful. It was one of her proudest and saddest days. She sat in the front row holding her husband's hand and ran her thumb over his knuckles as she tried not to cry herself. Her husband wept with joy and held tighter to her hand. The snowdrops on the tablecloth bring a stirring of emotion, but no explanation. She breathes deeply, and the emotion fades. Her chair isn't particularly comfortable. She shifts her shoulders to the side and exhales the momentary relief in muscle tension. She moves a hand to the armrest and dislodges a wire connected to the chair. A low alarm sounds. She looks around in confusion for a moment. The young man cheerily returns to her and kneels down to reconnect the magnetized end of the wire to her chair. "Be careful there, Mrs. Lane." He smiles kindly. He touches her hand as he stands up again. "You don't want to have another fall." She doesn't remember a previous fall. Her husband broke his hip on a patch of ice on their front walk at the retirement home. She was indignant, choosing to blame the retirement home for not sanding the pathway properly instead of focusing on her husband's decline. He deteriorated quickly from there, like the fall had triggered his Parkinson's. She was at his side every day but couldn't let herself process what was happening. She would take his trembling hand and sing jazz to him, swaying back and forth like they did when they were still young lovers in a university swing class. She got the words wrong most of the time, but he didn't notice, so she didn't care. She was there when his body started to reject the medication. She was there to make decisions when he wasn't able to voice his thoughts. She didn't let go of his weakening hand and hummed their favorite Glenn Miller through the weeks of intensive care. When he died, she couldn't bring herself to leave his room. Joseph and his wife looked after her the best he could, showing her photo albums and listening to her repeat memories on a loop to make them stick. She had a few good months of remembering before her husband started slipping away. That was the hardest part. She feels loved. She knows someone cares, even though she's not sure who. She gently strokes her aged thumb over her pointer finger and has a vague recollection of someone else holding her hand. Is he there? She jerks up and looks to the side. She sees a young man straightening a tablecloth. He reminds her so much of someone familiar to her. The sense of the dashing man she used to know overwhelms her. She starts to tear up and sits there for a moment in stillness. She is happy to feel something. She knows she is loved. Thank you for listening to Memory Lane by Elizabeth Peterson, a short story dedicated to her grandparents.
Miss Peterson, as many of you know, has appeared on the show as a voice actor a couple times now. Miss Peterson is an educator, mathematician, and playwright who can be found between New England, Scotland, and Canada. She likes logic and words, and her favorite words are
Syzygy, eleemosynary,
and
logodedaily.
You can read her theater reviews and thoughts on the world at her website, mathematicalmedievalist.wordpress.com.
Next up, stick around for an Easter-themed history lesson.
Roughly 5 years ago, I began a history program called Thumbnail History that never really made it off the ground. It actually began as an attempt to lend a little historical perspective to a major holiday, Easter. As that holiday is quickly approaching, I thought we might take a little time to experience some history in the form of that series I once called Thumbnail History, which was actually born out of a simple hashtag, Easter Loves History. So, this episode of Prose will serve as a preview of sorts. Here is the Easter Loves History preview of St. Ambrose and the Assyrian Empire. Enjoy. As we approach Easter, I thoroughly encourage everyone to explore why it is they believe what they believe. Not in an abstract, touchy-feely, subjective way, but from a historical perspective. For example, if you do not know Aurelius Ambrosius, aka Ambrose of Milan, aka St. Ambrose, and the role he played in inventing what most would think of as Christianity and its connection to or separation from the governing state, then you are ill-informed in your belief system. This egalitarian local official turned financial Nicene Christian leader shifted the history of the world, ecumenically and politically, and, according to Gibbon, was a catalyst for the eventual fall of the Western Roman Empire. Consequently, his subjugating Theodosius is why this history nerd simply cannot call the latter the Great as his common cognomen. Go read about this man. On a slightly different note, for those that are indeed interested in the Judeo-Christian tradition, getting to know the Neo-Assyrian Empire and all the players in the Mediterranean, Near East, and Middle East during the period following the collapse of the Bronze Age is a must-do. One figure I am particularly drawn to is Ashurnasirpal II of the aforementioned Neo-Assyrian Empire. This bad mamma jamma was a conqueror of the highest order, and he had no time for any jive. The overly cited, even Wikipedia has this, joyous rendition of some of his own exploits speaks of his conquering, saying of his enemies, quote, "Men young and old I took prisoners. Of some I cut off their feet and hands. Of others I cut off the ears, noses, and lips. And of the young men's ears, make a heap. Of the old men's heads, I made a marionette. I exposed their heads as a trophy in front of their city. The male children and the female children I burned in flames. The city I destroyed and I consumed with fire, 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 fire." Unquote. This rock star of the ancient world opened the door for Tiglath-Pileser III, Shalmaneser V, Sargon II, and Sennacherib to go and obliterate the upstart kingdom of Israel and directly affect Judaism and therefore Christianity. The vassal status of the numerous lasting kingdoms of what was Israel was so traumatic that, though they are recorded all over the place in many other cultures' records, the Bible very pointedly leaves out this vassalage. All of those events drive the Old Testament Israelites and have a direct and clearly lasting effect on the modern world. I certainly hope that you've enjoyed these two small snippets from the Thumbnail History series, in particular, #Easter Loves History. The backing track for this piece was taken from the Free Music Archive. It is titled Freedom, from the album Beginning EP by Cyrus. It is being used under Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License. Thank you very much to Cyrus for sharing this music with the world, and yet another thank you to Free Music Archive for providing a means for artists to do so.
Wow, don't I sound so fresh? Well, it has been some time and I've learned a few things. Hopefully we can agree that maybe I've gotten a little bit better at all things audio. At any rate, we do have one more little snippet to celebrate Easter today, and that is actually the Gospel according to Luke. So stick around, check that out, if you're in for a good tale or if you celebrate either way. It is an Easter tradition here at Prose for us to revisit the Easter story.
So, without any further ado, here is the resurrection according to the Gospel of Luke. Luke chapter 24, verses 1 through 53, from the King James Version. Now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them. And they found the stone rolled away from the sepulchre. And they entered in and found not the body of the Lord Jesus. And it came to pass, as they were much perplexed thereabout, behold, 2 men stood by them in shining garments. And as they were afraid and bowed down their faces to the earth, they said unto them, Why seek ye the living among the dead? He is not here, but is risen. Remember how he spake unto you when he was yet in Galilee, saying, The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, and be crucified, and the 3rd day rise again. And they remembered his words, and returned from the sepulchre, and told all these things unto the 11 and to all the rest. It was Mary Magdalene, and Joanna, and Mary the mother of James, and other women that were with them, which told these things unto the apostles. And their words seemed to them as idle tales, and they believed them not. Then arose Peter, and he ran unto the sepulchre, and stooping down, he beheld the linen cloths laid by themselves, and departed, wondering in himself at that which had come to pass. And behold, 2 of them went that same day to a village called Emmaus, which was from Jerusalem about 60 furlongs. And they talked together of all the things which had happened. And it came to pass that, while they communed together and reasoned, Jesus himself drew near, and went with them. But their eyes were holden, that they should not know him. And he said unto them, What manner of communications are these that ye have one to another as ye walk and are sad? And the one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answering, said unto him, Art thou only a stranger in Jerusalem, and hast not known the things which are come to pass in these days? And he said unto them, What things? And they said unto him, Concerning Jesus of Nazareth, which was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death, and have crucified him. But we trusted that it had been he which should have redeemed Israel. And beside all this, today is the 3rd day since these things were done. Yea, and certain women also of our company made us astonished, which were early at the sepulchre. And when they found not his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels, which said that he was alive. And certain of them, which were with us, went to the sepulchre, and found it even so as the women had said, but him they saw not. Then he said unto them, O fools, slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not Christ to have suffered these things, and to enter into his glory? And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded unto them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. And they drew nigh unto the village, whither they went, and he made as though he would have gone further. But they constrained him, saying, Abide with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is far spent. And he went in to tarry with them. And it came to pass, as he sat at meat with them, he took bread and blessed it, and brake, and gave it to them. And their eyes were opened, and they knew him, and he vanished out of their sight. And they said one to another, Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us by the by, and while he opened to us the scriptures? And they rose up the same hour, and returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 gathered together, and them that were with them, saying, The Lord is risen indeed, and hath appeared to Simon.
And they told what things were done in the way, and how he was known of them in breaking of bread. And as they thus spake, Jesus himself stood in the midst of them, and saith unto them, Peace be unto you. But they were terrified and affrighted, and supposed that they had seen a spirit. And he said unto them, Why are ye troubled, and why do thoughts arise in your hearts? Behold, my hands and my feet, that it is I myself, handle me and see. For a spirit hath not flesh and bones, as ye see me have. And when he had thus spoken, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while they yet believed not for joy, and wondered, he said unto them, Have ye here any meat? And they gave him a piece of broiled fish, and of an honeycomb. And he took it, and did eat before them. And he said unto them, These are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled, which were written in the law of Moses, and in the prophets, and in the Psalms concerning me. Then opened he their understanding, that they might understand the Scriptures, and said unto them, Thus it is written, and thus it behooved Christ to suffer, and to rise from the dead the third day. And that repentance and remission of sins should be preached in his name among all nations, beginning at Jerusalem. And ye are witnesses of these things. And behold, I send the promise of my Father upon you, but tarry ye in the city of Jerusalem until ye be endued with power from on high. And he led them out as far as to Bethany, and he lifted up his hands and blessed them. And it came to pass, while he blessed them, he was parted from them, and carried up into heaven. And they worshipped him, and returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and were continually in the temple, praising and blessing God. Amen. Thank you for listening to this little Easter special, the reading of the account of the resurrection from the Gospel of Luke, the King James Version. All sounds you hear here come from freesound.org. They are being used under public domain licenses CC 01.0. As always, we thank the artists that upload these songs to freesound.org for the use of the masses. Well, that does it for our little special. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the tales, the history, and everything. A very sincere thank you again to Miss Elizabeth Peterson for letting us hear her voice on the podcast today. As we draw to a close today, I hope that you will love those around you, tell them that you do, and embrace this life, as it is always stranger than fiction. Have a happy Easter if you celebrate. Have a wonderful day if you don't. Everyone, thanks for listening. Take care out there.